Hi there. So I'm going to try and record a video. Um, it's going to be quite long about the different modeling tools you have available to you. Um, it's mostly about the cutlery assignment and dinnerware set assignment, um, and the different things that I guess are available to be made for you. I'm going to cover some different things that you can make and how you can make them and what different methods. Um, But first and foremost, I'm going to cover finding reference. And so the main way I find reference is just by Googling. In this case, first I searched up what are some different types of drinking vessels. One of them that I found was a sake set, wine glasses, goblets, something called a quake. Um, I looked up some plate blueprints. I looked up some wine glass blueprints. I looked up cutlery sets, found some that I liked. I like to look up as a set so that way I can find pieces that look like they belong together. I looked for a spoon profile so that way when I make the curves for the side of the spoon and the fork, um, I have something to reference to. And I looked up dimensions. So um, after I did my search for wine glasses, I searched up what are the dimensions of a standard wine glass. In my case, I'm going off of these random blueprints that have no dimensions, and so I can just look up um, something that might fit my needs. So like I've noticed the standard is about 9, 10 inches. This one's 8 and 7/8. So yeah, about 9 inches tall. And I really only need one if I'm using a reference image because I just need to match up one dimension. But if I was trying to make something like to the T exactly like the image and I wasn't riffing on it, I would want to pull that image and the dimensions and find something that would have that kind of information that I need, or draw it myself and come up with those dimensions if there isn't anything I can find. Um, so from here, the way I download these images. So all I have to do is right click and go open image in new tab. And so I'll do that for this one because I haven't done it yet. And then right click that image and say save image as. I could also just do it straight from here, save image as. I could, in this case for the wine glass dimensions one, doesn't really, like it wouldn't give me a image because it'll only give me a web page due to the way the shopping site functioned. And so I went to the link, and after going to the link, I went save image as. And you see here it's giving me a web page. So sorry, I did a open image in new tab. That came over here, and now I can either copy image and paste it somewhere and then save it, or paste it into Miro that I had open, paste it to a sticky note, or just take a screenshot of it. So I could take a screenshot and save it, and then so yeah, just keep going. That way, make sure to double check that what you're saving is a JPEG or a PNG and not a web page. If it is a web page, try and get it open in a new tab and take a screenshot. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording, and I'm going to save all my reference images, write down some dimensions, and then the next thing you'll see is we're going to be in Cinema 4D. So now we're in Cinema 4D, and uh, I made myself a backup null. I hid it and I put it in a layer just in case, and this is all for things that I'll need later. I'm going to go to make another null for myself. I'm going to call it done, so that way anything I'm done with I can hide. But But that's just in my case, since I'm going to be making multiple things in the same project. I'm going to go ahead and save this project real quick just in case. And I'll put it in that folder there. There we go. Okay. So as for bringing in that image into my orthographic views, I'm going to start with the cutlery. So Shift V will get me my orthographic views. So once more, that Shift V, to pull up the viewport settings, go to Back, Image, and then select your location. I'm starting off with the flatware, like that one. I'm gonna put that in my top view because I want my cutlery to be laying flat. And down here, I'm going to put my profile for the spoon. And then as for size, typically cutlery is about, I want to say 8 inches long, maybe 7 inches long. And so on the Z axis, I'm going to do about 7 inches, and I'm working in inches and not centimeters. You could work in centimeters and still type in 7 inches and it'll be fine. So now I'm going to scale my reference images. So once again, Shift V, and then scale that way down till it lines up almost with the edges of my lines. And then if I hold down Alt and click, it goes in decimal increments. So that way I can get it nice and lined up. So I think 7.6 is going to be okay for the purposes I need it for. Up here, same thing. Let's say I'm going to start off with a real small number. So, yep, 7 seems fine. And I want to line it up maybe with the fork and the spoon. So offset Y moves it up and down. Scale it down a smidge. So I can tell that these images are going to be slightly crooked, and that's going to be okay. So for the time being, I'm going to line up my fork first. And I really only need this for getting the gist of my shape. 1.89. That's pretty close to the middle. It's not perfect. 1.88. That's okay. All right, so I'll stick with about that. And I'm going to use the same spoon profile for the fork. I'm just going to, once I reach this point, just keep it straight. So that way it goes straight out for the fork. And so I'm going to get rid of that reference cue because I really only needed it to get the size of my my reference photos. You can keep it, but you don't have to. And so, right, as you learned for the fork, you need to start off with a plane. So, actually gonna line this up a little bit better still, sorry. 0.85. I'm gonna have the tines lined up for now, just because I want to get, well, see, it was 1.88. We'll just stick with that. I think it'll be okay. All right, so delete that once more. Okay, so to start with the fork, we are going to start with a plane. We are going to make it much smaller. And place it as close as possible to where I believe it's going to need to be. And then I'm going to make it a lot shorter. And I want to say that 1 inch is going to be about fine for what I need. Let's say point 0.9. All right. So to follow the topology flow chart that was given to you all, and keep this nice and neat, I'm going to start this off with one width segment and one height segment. I'm going to put this and call this fork start. Put that in backup and then hit C, make it editable. And then I'm going to do polygon mode. I'm going to select both of these polygons at top, KL for loop cut, and then I'm going to say restrict to selection. This is just because I want to get my cuts perfectly centered. If I hold down shift, it snaps the loop cut to an increment or a quantized step based on here. So 3 means that this is cut into perfectly 4. And so if I did 4, everything's cut into perfectly 5, and so on and so forth. So I want to keep that at 3, leave all the settings the same. I'm going to actually turn up the transparency on my reference so I can see things a little better back here, especially because I'm not going to follow it to the heart since I know that everything back there is a bit crooked. All right, so then back to this, hold down shift, snap that to the middle. And so you see that our cuts are being restricted to just the selection back here like we wanted, and there's no cuts happening down here. So after I've done that, I'm going to use the polygon pen tool, and I'm going to click this point right here, and then I'm going to click the point at the end right here. And what that's going to do is that's going to make a cut on this that goes through this piece. And the reason I wanted to use the polygon pen is because if I hover over this edge and hold down Control and then click on it, it dissolves that edge. So now I want to do the same thing to this side, here to here, hold down Control and click. And so now I have this nice 2 to 4 topology flow. And I'm going to take, let's see, Control A, and I'm going to drag this down just a little. And I want to keep it centered in this case. I don't want to move it left or right. And so next, our next steps are going to be to, let's see, I'm going to move on to moving the tines up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click each one and then just Control drag it one at a time up. And this is just so that I can get them all separated when they come out. And then 9 for the live selection tool, select all these edges. And then I like to use the coordinate manager, but you can also just scale them flat and hold down shift until it's 0, or you can type it in over here in the Z 0 and it'll flatten it out. And then I am going to drag them up to the end of the other tines. And then I'm going to scale each one down individually, T for scale. And I want to scale each one down to about 10%. If I hold down shift, I get an exact number. That way I know each one is the exact same size. So I want to start scaling first and then hold down shift. So that way it gives me that increment number. And then I want to take both of these outer pieces of the fork and I want to pull them in just a little bit. And so the hard part about this is that I don't want to end up with some strange number. And so I'm thinking my best course of action should be to come down to the coordinate manager and say minus 0.05 because I know I want to move it in just a smidge. So on this side, because it's a negative, I want to go plus 0.05. And now that moves that in exactly by 0.05 and 0.05. So now I have that shaped as I would like. Next is to, let's see. I feel like right here I need a loop cut, KL, to go straight across here. So I'm just actually going to go KK, and I'm going to make a cut right here, straight across to right here. And then I noticed that there's a point right here and right here, so I'm going to dissolve those or just delete them. There you go. And so the reason I wanted to make this cut here is because I want to move these points higher than where they're at. But at the same time, I know that I want some supporting geometry right here. So I made a cut there. I think the better bet would have been to take all the edges at the beginning and moved them up and then did my individual movement up of each time. But I didn't, so the way I could fix it was by making that cut and then moving these up. And then from here, I can take my edges and move them down, hold down Control so that it makes an extra edge, and then scale that in, maybe move it slightly back up. And then now I'm just going to follow along the edge of this. Make a little short piece right here, and then that's just for a supporting edge that's going to be needed in a little bit. I can do it now, or I can make the cut for it later. And spread that out. E, Control drag. C, here, T, E, hold down T. Sorry, it's just because I'm holding it there. T, maybe like that. And then I'm going to put I'm going to do KK for straight cut again. Cut here and drag across while holding down shift so it's straight. And then do the same down here. And then select another tool so that way I don't end up accidentally making any other cuts. Try to have nothing selected while I'm navigating around so I don't make any surprise movements. This looks like it's going to be okay, so to test it out, I'm going to put it in a subdivision surface. If I hold down Alt and then click on it, my subdivision surface automatically becomes apparent. And so now that I have done that, it looks like it came out just fine. Because I made these loop cuts here, everything here is nice and sharp. I might actually want to take those edges I made, which are now these, and I might want to scale them down a little bit each one. So to bring it down by about, let's see, I'm going to start with the center ones first. So I'm going to bring these down by 75%. Same with this one. But then for these, I want to move my modeling axis here in the scale tool. And I'm going to move it all the way to the outer end and then do 75%. And then same for this edge and start scaling it down to 75%. And the only reason I wanted to scale it down was so that I would have this bowing down here at the bottom of the fork. And so that's that. I could make it even smaller if I wanted it even wider, like the reference in the back, but I think I like it where it's at, so I'm going to leave it be for now. And from here, I'm going to start working on making it thick. So all I need for that is to come into the asset browser and type in solidify. I want to make sure in my polygon mode down here, I have nothing selected. Same for edge mode, same for point mode, just because I don't want Solidify to accidentally take on whatever selection it is that I have. So obviously the Solidify is ginormous, and so I want to make it much smaller and see what results we get. So maybe 0.05. That's fine. So now I have this flat fork. How do I take this fork from being flat and turn it into something that has more depth? And so the way I would do that is with the profile view that we imported. And yes, this is a spoon, but I am going to use it for my fork. And so I'm going to just offset this on the Y till it's about where I can use it. And so I'm going to line it up about here, negative 1.25. Yeah, that should be fine. I'm going to turn off the solidify. I'm going to select the original geometry. I'm going to go to point mode. So I have a few options here. I can, one, make some selections, drag them up and down. Or I can use the brush tool, and I can set the strength to be as high as possible on smear, and set the size of my brush to be something really small. There we go. All right. And then on top of that, I'm going to Shift V, turn down the transparency of my reference in the back so I can see things a little better. So, brush tool. I can use the brush tool to just push and pull the points of my geometry until it looks as I desire. And so for the case of the top part of this fork here, I actually want to take all these pieces and I want to turn off visible only, make sure I select all the way across, and then drag down. And then deselect here and drag down. Select here and drag down. And maybe a little higher. And so the reason for this is because for a fork, when it's resting on the table, once you place the angle here and here where they'll meet, you can see this will come up on its own. But for precautionary purposes, we could bring up these upper points just a little, just so that we have a little bit of extra bend to that fork. Just smooth this out until I'm happy with it. And so now, turn back on Solidify, take a look at the fork. Let's see, I'm really not liking this particular edge right here. This might have to do with subdivision surface. Yep. So once I turn off subdivision surface, I can get this nice in place. And somewhere that makes sense. And then turn back on subdivision surface. Yeah, that looks better. So that looks great. Turn on solidify. Now we have this nice fork. All right. So now that that's done, I can name this fork. I can place in the backup, then right click, connect objects and delete because I already technically have a backup and don't need another one. And now I can place this fork in done. Now that's hidden and it's time to move on to the spoon. So I can do Shift V, move this over the other way. That one looks lined up nicely. All right. So to do the spoon, we will start off with a disc. The disc doesn't need to be that big. At the most, I would make it smaller than you think you'll need. Let's say about 0.4. Turn down the rotation segments to 8. And the reason that we want 8 is, one, it seems to round out nicely in a subdivision surface. And two, it's going to be what's going to give us the best topology quads-wise. And so I'm going to name this spoon start. And I'm going to back that up just in case and hit C on this. I'm going to go to edge mode. And so something about the transformation tools that I use very often is in edge mode, if you double click, you will get a perfect loop selection. You could use UL and do a loop selection to get the same thing. It's up to you. But I like to double click because I don't like all the extra keystrokes. And then I need to reset my modeling axis because this moved from the last time I used it. So I got to set that to 0. And then I need T for scale. And then I need to hold down Control and drag outwards. And then after I've done my drag outwards, I can then drag on one single axis. So if I hover over the blue axis, the Z axis, and drag up, that's what I'm looking for. I can either do it that way or hit Control A. And it's best to do the whole thing at once and then maybe move it a little bit, let's say here, and then I might need to actually scale it a little bigger just because these parts are going to round out as soon as I put them in a subdivision surface. So now on to the next part, which is going to be KL for loop cut. Or wait, sorry. We'll select the move tool first and select these diagonal lines in the center. And then do MN to dissolve. So now we have a perfect quad here, quads here, and we're all set. All right, now, sorry, KL. So KL, there we go. And I get this perfect line up through the center of the spoon on one side. I'm gonna make a cut right here because it lines up really well with the edge of this. And I'm going to now select all the polygons on this side and delete them because we only need half a spoon for now. Whew, that is a lot. And then take this edge and I'm going to flatten it out to 0 right here and place it nicely. Okay, cool. We've gotten this far. We got the nice bowl of the spoon. It's got minimal geometry so that it smooths well. I'm probably also going to take these and I'm going to do a quick MO, which is the slide tool. I'm going to just drag them over just a little so that I have this nice even geometry right here. There we go. All right. So now that that's done, I can move on to the handle, and you've already seen me do this once with the fork. But in this case, it's a little bit different because we don't have two sides, we only have one side. And scaling is going to be a little different. So my suggestion for this is to move the modeling axis till it's in the center. And now you can do a control drag down, T for scale, and it will all scale from the center and you won't have to worry about recentering it later. Drag this all the way down. T for scale. E. T for scale. I accidentally hit Y earlier, so it locked this Y axis, so I just need to turn it off. E. T. E. Control. T. E. T. E. T. Any other adjustments can be made. I can do move down, E, whoops, T, T. And I can shape this however I'd like. Now that I've made the modeling axis be in the center, I don't have to worry about adjustments not working out. And so I believe I have this to the shape I want it to be. Let's go ahead and make a symmetry and put the start spoon in there. And then make a subdivision surface and put that in there. And I noticed I don't like the way that this is rounding, so I'm going to go to point mode. And I'm going to grab these points and move them around till things look as I would like. Here we go. All this looks fine down here. All right, so now for the profile of the spoon. I can probably do the same as I did for the fork. I'm going to use the brush tool. You could use the move tool with a with soft selection turned on, or whatever works best for you. I want to make sure I have no point selected, because if I have a point selected, it will only affect that point and nothing else. So I want to go Control Shift A, make sure nothing is selected. Move this up, move this down. Up, down. And I'm not quite worrying about the bowl yet. I do want to make sure this all comes down evenly. Let's see, one sec. I kind of just want to line it up only with this top piece of the spoon right here. And then I will worry about the bowl next. So as for the bowl, I found that just taking the points in the middle and dragging them down gave me the best results. And just manipulating those points little by little until they looked as I desired was what was best. So I'm going to use the live selection tool so I can just drag over all of them. And the other thing I have to keep in mind as I'm doing this is that in reality what I'm seeing isn't really what's there, because if I zoom in on what's happening over here, I can see that that's really square. And that's probably not what I want. So to make sure that things don't get so square, I just need to make sure that I am looking at that while I work. And I believe things are pretty much set on the spoon now. So I want to double check that my center points right here, UL, are perfectly flat on the X, and it looks like they are. But just in case, I'm going to start scaling and then hold down Shift until I hit 0, just to make sure. Doesn't hurt. Okay, so I have that done. Now, the way that the solidify is going to work for this is actually that I need to group, so Alt-G, the geometry that's going to be in the spoon. Call this spoon. Spoon. There we go. Also going to call this spoon sub D, just in case. And I want to put the solidify under the spoon null. I can take that, put it here. But then I want to put the symmetry on top, just in case. And so now that I have that done, let's make this smaller, 0.05. And yeah, I think that's going to work. I didn't double check that I didn't have any geometry selected on the spoon, but it at least turned out okay this time. But it does help if you do that. Okay, now the spoon's done. Next is the knife. So I'm going to do the same thing I did with the other ones. Right click, connect objects, put this in the backup, and put the spoon in done. There we go. Knife, get that centered. I think right there should be fine. And time to get started on this one. So on this one, I would start with a plane. It doesn't need any of those subdivisions. 1, 1. That's way more than enough. I'm going to go to model mode, scale this down here, and scale it down this way. And I want to start about right here. Be fine. And then this is knife start, and I'm actually not going to back this one up. I mean, I could. It doesn't hurt. But then I'm going to hit C, make it editable, go to edge mode. And from here, it looks like the back of my knife is mostly straight to the top. So the modeling axis is set to be 100%. So I'm actually just going to leave that one there. I'm going to move this up, move it up one more time. And then T for scale, making sure I'm holding down control every time I want a new edge made. Actually kind of want this right here. Then up higher, T for scale. Then up higher to about right there. Then up higher again, and maybe about right here. Up here. And right there. So that's done. And now to the bottom, I want to set my modeling axis to 0 again. E for the move tool. And let's see, out here, T for scale. E for the move tool. T for scale. E for the move tool. T for scale. Hold down control for every new edge. E, T. And let's see what that looks like in a subdivision surface. And not bad, it's pretty close. Some things that could use a little bit of fine tuning. Grab that edge and scale, grab that edge and scale. Grab this edge, change my modeling axis and scale. And I might want to make a loop cut, maybe. See, it's not, oh right, because I have restricted selection. I want to turn off restricted selection. There we go. I can cut maybe right about there and right about there, and see what that looks like. And maybe T for scale here and scale this in. There we go. That's about what I'm looking for. Make this bigger. Yeah. All right, so that is done for that. We're obviously not going to need the spoon profile for this one, but we are going to need to make some kind of profile because if we notice in the image, the sharp part of the knife is much thinner than the handle. And so what I would do is we could use a solidify, or we could simply just select all the polygons on the knife, E and control drag down, and I would turn off the subdivision surface for a little bit. And let's pick a distance. How far down or how thick is this knife going to be? And so the other ones I made like 0.05 inches thick. So down here, there's going to be maybe negative. Nope. Okay. Oh, right, on the Y. So negative 0.05 on the Y will give me the same thickness as the other knife and spoon. And see, this did not give me my desired result. I think I need to make an extrude. So turn off the subdivision surface, extrude, drag a little bit, say create caps. There we go. And do a nice negative 0.05. And then I'm going to have to select all my polygons, right click, and reverse normals, just because I wanted this to go below 0 instead of above 0. If you went above, it would all be orange. It's all up to you. And then I want to do something a bit strange. First things first, this one's not so strange. It is selecting the loop right around where that dip is going to be, so about here. Then going UF for the fill selection tool, select that, and then do a T for scale. And I'm going to hold down shift and make this maybe 45% smaller, just so that way it's thinner. And then right here I get that little bit of a dip in. If I wanted that dip to be sharper, I could do a KL right about here. And then select that loop and also make it like 45% smaller. Just so that way it's closer. Options, options. So if I turn on the subdivision surface now, we can see that that is a much steeper transition compared to what it would have been had it been all the way over here. And then I believe this is fine. We have options for all the spoon, fork, and knife stuff, in that if you take the geometry that you had and bake the solidify in, you could make a cut right in the middle and pull it up in the center to make the handle more round. In this case, I'm going to leave mine flat, but you don't have to. It's all about options. I'll show you real quick how I would do it on this knife. So that if you want to do it on the fork, since it already has a center line, and the spoon, and it already has a center line, you can. You would just need to take the points right here in the middle of your knife on the top and bottom. Yep. And then T for scale, and just scale it up a bit on the Y. That way it becomes more thick between here. And since it's under a subdivision surface, it's smoothing it out. Options, option. So then now I can do right click, connect objects. take this and put it in backup, take this and put it in done. All right, so we've got the cutlery done. Where to go from here? So I think from here I'm going to move on to the plates portion of this whole thing. And so I'm going to just go ahead and do the new background image, open. This one would be fine as well, same thing. Here we go. I know that most plates are 10 inches in diameter, standard-wise. So I'm going to go ahead and make a disc, and radius would be 5. And then I'm going to go ahead and place my background images somewhere that makes sense. Scale them up. And whatever the scale for this one is going to be the same scale and position for the other one almost, like for the X. There we go. So negative 0.05 and 0.65. Yeah, that should be fine. There we go. So negative 0.05. And then as for the offset on the Y, this just needs to line up with the profile of the plate. That should be fine. As for the scale, 12.6. Oops, so then that needs to go higher. There should be fine. Okay. So, options for the plates. If you are just going to make some really simple plates, you can honestly just do something like this, which is, I'm actually going to rotate this just a tad, just because I noticed that's not straight. There we go. Okay. Right. So you can take the disc, make it smaller until it fits the radius of the bottom of the plate there. And then I call this plate start. Come on. Start. There we go. Back that up. Hit C. And then I can just take the edge, double click, and drag it up, scale it out. Probably move it down a little more because I want it to match up with that line right there. There we go. E, drag it up, T, out. There we go. Honestly, I'd probably stop about here. We'll just leave it about there. And then select all the polygons and do a quick extrude up and inwards. Yeah, that should be fine. Well. That didn't quite go as I expected. That's okay. I have a good idea as to why that happened. So this happened because when I was scaling, I didn't double check that my modeling axis was centered. So you see here, mine was 100%. It should be 0. I'm going to do that one more time and I'll be right back. Right, so I'm back to that. Just did a bit of moving and scaling, and now we're back to normal now that I put the moving axis where it's supposed to be. Sorry about that. Extrude, and so that's D for extrude. Scale it in just a little. Let's say 0.05. There we go, that should be fine. And now I'm going to take these center polygons. I'm going to delete them. I'm going to do close polygon hole. I'm going to set it to grid. I'm going to close the bottom polygon hole and the upper inner polygon hole in here. And then I'm going to take all these middle polygons, or let's see, first I'm going to take this edge. I'm going to dissolve it, so MN. And same with this one, MN. And then I'm going to take everything in here, so UL, select this bottom half, UF, and I'm probably just going to drag it up a bit. And this is just because most of the time plates are thicker on the bottom and shallower on the inside, and you can see that from this blueprint here, that it is pretty much telling you that. And then I'm going to make some supporting geometry cuts. So KL, I'll put one here, I'm going to put one down here, and I'm going to put one maybe in here. And then we're going to throw this in a subdivision surface, because that's going to smooth it out. And so I'm noticing, I guess it's normal. I'm going to do a NB to see my geometry. See what's going on here. So my geometry here looks a little funny. I must have done something wrong. And so I can double check what that is. So it's not that. It looks to me like there's maybe some double geometry. My best bet would just be to start over. If I needed to fix it, I could do some things, but let's see. Either it's that or it's that I just need another cut right here. Nope. Well, it's fine. I'm going to conclude it is plate enough. I'm pretty sure there's double geometry here, but just make sure you do better than me. That's all. Right. As for fancier plate options, so this is simple plate. I'm gonna just shove that in done because I'm gonna stop there. For a fancier plate, you can do a loft. So if I take a flower shape, and obviously it needs to be a lot smaller, I'm gonna just go T for scale. Scale it way down until I finally see it. There we go. And then I'm going to then go back to those settings and maybe make this just a smidge bigger. Make it more petals. Let's see, maybe not petals, maybe not flowers. Maybe I just need to draw it. No, yes, maybe. Hmm. I only really need to draw it once. And the way I would draw it is going to be weird. I'm going to make an end side. I'm going to scale it down real small. And I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I have 16. So I'm going to make at least 16 sides. And then I'm going to multiply it by 3. 16 times 3. And the purpose of making it that many is so that I could hit C, go to point mode, and then I'm going to, I should have made it the right size, which is UL or Control A, the points. Make this 10 inches by 10 inches, like I told myself I would. Hmm. This is a tricky one. Okay, let's do 32. So I'm going to make it twice as many points as I think I would need all the way around. I'm going to call this fancy plate start. Hit C to make it editable. Right, back it up first, because I don't want to do all of that over again. Hit C. Select every other point, really. So that one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, that one, that one, that one. Almost there. I probably could have also used a star. Right. It took me a minute. Do that. Control A, right click, chamfer, and smooth the whole thing out. And then after I've pulled out all those points to smooth, I can do a right click optimize. And they'll all meet like they're supposed to, if that's what I want. Or if I want this to be more subtle, I have another option, which is chamfer those inner points first and make them a small chamfer. And then select all the outer points. Here, here, all the way around. Depending on what you're able to give up and keep, it's up to you. Chamfer, chamfer it wide. So now I have this nice wide dip and this nice low dip. And I'd probably go all the way until I can't anymore, so that way the points hit each other. So that I can do a Control A, right click, and optimize, so I don't end up with a lot of overlapping points. Because it can get troublesome. So now that I have this initial shape, I need to take that shape into mind as I continue forward doing this loftwise. So another end side, get 10 inches, make sure it's facing up, or sorry, 5 inches in diameter. And how many points do I have? So many. But I could probably just stick to 32 will be fine. T for scale. Bring it in. Let's see, I might make it about there. And then do another one. Drag it in. And then I need one that's a little bit bigger. And then one that's exactly the same as this one. And so I gotta label these. So this is my frill. This is my, I should also back up that frill. I don't have to do that all over again. This is my mid. This is center. This is outer center. This is bottom. Okay. So the order I want this in is going to be center, and then outer center, and then mid, frill, bottom. Then I need another mid on the bottom, and now I gotta kind of make that shape. So I'm gonna take frill, and I'm going to switch to model mode, move this up. I'm gonna take mid, this up, it's about there. Take mid 1 for the bottom and put that about there. This is bottom, should be all the way down here. Let's see, center should be about here. Outer center. Let's see. Do a T for scale and try and line all this stuff up to places that make sense on this. So about there. So this is supposed to be center, maybe about there. Outer center, mid, frill, then come back out, bottom, the mid. So this should, yeah, bottom, mid, frill, mid, bottom, other bottom. Actually, probably need another one of these bottoms, about right here. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make these all in order, kind of like a paper lantern, until they basically come out in a round. And the frill, I probably want a duplicate of that that's a smidge bigger and a bit lower. And you'll see right now in a second why. So I'm going to make a loft. And I'm going to put all of this in there. And so obviously this isn't exactly what we wanted. What we did want was more subdivisions. So we got to turn up the mesh subdivisions until we have something that looks pretty similar to our desired result. And I'm noticing a bit of like turning here. And so what I want to do is I'm going to take all of these n-gon shapes and I want to rotate them just a little. So that way everything lines up the way I want it to. So we're getting pretty close. I think the last two things I want to do is I want to take the center, T for scale, make it smaller. And then take the bottom one more time, bring it down, and scale it in. And that will just smooth out these polygons right there. So now, let's see, loft. I obviously need some kind of variant on 16. That's obviously too many. Let's say 160. I feel like that gives us enough geometry on these little dips down here, as well as on the rises. The other way we could go about this happening here is that I could turn down the subdivisions to something like maybe 64, and then maybe put this in a subdivision surface. See how that goes. But I feel like that's way too much geometry. So I'll stick with 160 being the case on this. We don't need very many mesh subdivisions and isoparm subdivisions. I'm Still not 100% on. Organic form doesn't seem to make any change. Yeah, I think we're good. I think that's, if you wanted to approach a fancier plate, look at your other options like loft or lathe. You could do subdivision surface modeling by taking your edges, pulling them in and out the way we did with that first simple plate. It's really all up to you on that. To make a smaller version of this plate, so I'm going to just call this plate and connect objects, throw this in backup. And to make a smaller version, you literally just need to scale it down and hold control. So that way you have a duplicate. Make sure you're in model mode and not one of the other modes with selections, because then you're going to just be making duplicates of the geometry and it just gets weird. Okay. So I've been going now for like an hour. So I'm going to stop here. I feel like I've shown quite a bit. If you're going to make a wine glass, you can do a lathe. You could do subdivision surface modeling like I did with the simple plate. It's the same thing. You take, I'm going to go ahead and put these in done. And I'm going to make a cylinder. This will be the last thing I'll show you guys, which is going to be radius of, let's say 4 inches, height of maybe 4 as well. I need 1 height segment, rotation segments. It can be 16 if you want it to be smooth. It could even be maybe 8. That's fine. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this wine glass start. I'm going to make a backup, hit C. I'm going to take the polygons. Down here, I'm just going to delete these. I want to make sure visible only is turned on, so that way I don't accidentally take anything else. These down here. Let's see, I'm going to bring in a reference image for this. So we'll do Shift V, and I'm going to just pull in this wine glass dimensions one and re-center all this. Make it bigger. It's fine. We will make it work for now. So I want this piece that I have right here to be about the thickest spot on the wine glass. So that should be fine. I'm going to do a T for scale, scale it out just a smidge, move it up just a little, and then control drag down, T for scale, maybe make it a little higher, E, T, E, control drag, T, E, maybe be in edge mode, T for scale, E, move it up just a little, things like that. Back to polygon mode, down to here, T for scale. Let's see, maybe about right here and here. T for scale, E, E again, T, widen it out, E, T, E. I sound like an alien. Drag that down just a smidge. Do KL for loop cut. I want a supporting cut right here, here. be one right about here. And then let's throw this in a subdivision surface for a sec. And so I need to take the topmost edges up here. Gotta do E, T. See, about there. Take this edge, widen it out. This edge, widen it out. This edge, wide. Same thing here. Here. Maybe move it down a little. And yeah, that's almost it. I think all that's left is now to do a loop selection about, I want to say here, UF, shift click, and then do a extrude D and bring it in just a little and turn off subdivision surface for a moment so I can see what I'm doing. Negative 0.1, no, maybe negative 0.05. Let's see. Something small, negative 0.05. There we go. And then I want to take this tiny little edge in here that was made right around here, UL. And I want to select that and then delete it. And the reason for that is I don't want to end up with accidental inner geometry there because I want to go close polygon hole, grid mode, and close up the bottom of this wine glass right here. So that way we have a nice sealed wine glass. We can take the points at the bottom here and I'm going to just select every other, the diagonal ones and dissolve those. Just so that way we have a nice quad topology wine glass. And then turn on subdivision surface again and let's see what that result looks like. So NA and deselect it. There we go. And if I needed this to be less sharp down here, it's as easy as taking these and pushing them higher or lower. If I needed this to be less sharp, it's the same thing. Push the edges away from each other. If I needed this to be sharper up here, I would do KL. I would make a cut here near the top on the outside and inside. And so the reason for that is so that I'll have a little bit sharper of a edge on the inside here. So I'm going to turn off subdivision surface so I can see what I'm doing. And maybe slide that up a little. There we go, turn that off. Nice, we have a nice visible rim on the wine glass. There we go. Yeah, so that's one option. You could do a lathe. You could do a loft. Pick whichever route is the least, the path of least resistance for you. Whatever works best for you and seems the less confusing route. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here. Have a beautiful day, everybody. Bye-bye.